He said it as casually as if he were placing a food order. No pause, no shame. 80% for Rael's future. 20% for your father. Simple as that. The kitchen was silent except for the tick of the wall clock and the steady drip of the faucet I'd begged him to fix 3 months earlier. Tomas leaned back in his chair, hands resting over his stomach like a king settling debts. Rael was probably down the hall, in bed with his headphones on, scrolling through sneakers. He couldn't afford not on the money he made himself, anyway. I looked across the table at my father. Same stained t-shirt, same expectant smirk. I stirred my coffee and stayed quiet. He thought I was calculating, ready to argue, maybe even bargain. Instead, I laughed sharp, sudden, startling even to me. He blinked. What's funny? I wiped a tear from the corner of my eye. Nothing. Just that I've been giving both of you the best of me for years. My time, my money, my silence. And now you think you can split me up like I'm a grocery list? Tomas sat forward. We're family. Your brother needs school. I need this. House running. It's not complicated, Isla. You've got more than enough. No, I said, standing. You've had more than enough of me. I picked up my cup and walked toward my room. His voice followed. You're being dramatic. I didn't answer. Didn't owe him the performance. In my room, I opened the closet and pulled out a suitcase, not because I was leaving that night, but because something inside me had shifted. Not rage, but something colder and steadier. The kind of feeling that doesn't burn out, the kind that becomes movement. I zipped the bag shut and left it by the door. That was the moment I knew the next chapter of my life wouldn't be about Stanget would be about remembering when I stopped asking permission to leave. The night my mother walked out, she swore it was temporary. She stood at the front door with her suitcase, hair pulled back tight, voice even tighter. Just for a few months, mija. I'll send money. I'll get ahead. She kissed my cheek like it was a chore, not a goodbye. I was 14. Rael was 9. Tomas didn't even walk her out, just sat on the couch flipping channels as if nothing mattered. A few months stretched into a year, then 5. We stopped counting. By 16, I knew how to cook Rael's favorite breakfast, fill out his school forms, check for fevers, and keep the power on. Tomas called it stepping up. To me, it felt like being dragged forward while everyone else stepped back. He quit working soon after Mom left. First it was his back, then his knees, then why? Should I break myself when your mother sends money? Even when her remittances slowed, he didn't move. At 18, I got a job folding clothes at a department store. On payday, Tomas stretched out his hand. We're a team. I handed it over. Rent, groceries, cable, beer, my paycheck kept. The house standing while he stayed seated. Rael was the golden child, the creative one, always needing the latest headphones, the upgraded phone, shoes that cost more than I made in a week. When I asked if he should contribute to Tomas, cracked a beer and chuckled. Let your brother live. You already had your chance. My chance at what? College? Rest? Silence. The house was small, walls thin. I heard everything. Rael sneaking in late, Tomas talking about me like I was his nagging wife instead of his daughter. Like my discipline was a flaw, not the only reason. We weren't in debt. I remember standing in the hallway once, wet towel in hand, listening to them laugh over something meaningless. I felt like a ghost present, breathing but unseen. Still, I stayed, thinking that's what family meant. Holding up the roof no matter how hard it pressed down. But maybe I wasn't holding it up at all. Kate, maybe I was just trapping myself beneath it, waiting for the collapse. That suitcase by the doorette wasn't fear anymore. It was a signal. And the very next day, something would make my decision clearer. I never planned to stay at that job long. It was supposed to be an exit, any Exitan entry-level assistant in food logistics. I showed up early, stayed late, thanked everyone too much. 5 years in, I was logistics lead. 2 more, and I was supervising regional shipments, managing people. Who once called me kid. Raises came slow but steady. Nothing flashy, but the money grew at home, though I never said a word. Each payday, I pulled out the same amount I'd earned at 19, slipped it into an envelope, and handed it to Tomas. He'd nod, grunt a thank you if the mood struck. Rael never asked where I worked. I doubt he even knew the company's name. Meanwhile, I opened a secret savings account, different login. At first, just a few hundred, then a few thousand. Watching those numbers climb was like watching the tide come in. At home, nothing changed. Same cracked tile, same sagging couch, same empty promises. Whenever I needed space, I lied. Overtime, shortened hours, they never asked questions. Maybe they didn't care enough too. Lunch was usually alone. But once I ran into Amara from HR. We'd worked the floor together years before. She smiled, still surviving, more or less. Her expression softened. You always had a good head, but girlie, you carry that family like it's a cross. I stayed quiet, chewing slower. She tilted her head. Love isn't supposed to feel like servitude. I laughed it off, but the words followed me home. They stayed with me through folding laundry, through Rael's muffled request for another $40 for something important. That night, I transferred more into savings. It wasn't just money I was hoarding. It was options. And a few weeks later, a careless mistake would expose them sooner than I was ready. One afternoon, I printed a pay stub for bank verification and left it on my desk. Normally, I'd slide it into the folder hidden beneath my mattress. But that night, I got home late, tossed my bag on the bed, and forgot. The next day, Rael was waiting in the hall, arms crossed, face flushed with anger and disbelief. He waved. The paper-like evidence. This is what they pay you. I said nothing. He already knew. So you've been hoarding while we struggle. His voice cracked between a sob and a shout. I stepped past him. That's none of your business. Followed, you live here, don't you? Eat our food, sit on our couch while you sit on stacks of cash. By then, Tomas was at the table, pay stub in hand. His eyes narrowed. This real? I nodded once. He slammed the table. Selfish girl. Rael wants college. I need help keeping this house up. And you're stacking money while pretending we're scraping by. You never asked, I said quietly. You just assumed I'd stay broke for your convenience? He puffed his chest like it meant something. Then it changes. From now on, 80% goes to Rael. He's got a future. The other 20, I've earned for keeping this family together. The silence that followed was heavy, like a lid closing over boiling water. I looked at Rael. He didn't flinch. He looked proud. Something inside me stilled. Not peace, the kind of quiet that builds walls. I didn't shout, didn't argue. I just walked to my room and shut the door. If they thought money meant control, they were about to learn what happens when the one holding the roof up finally lets go. The next morning, I pulled the suitcase all the way out. I packed slowly, savoring each fold of fabric, each click of the zipper. I wasn't just filling a bag, I was claiming what was mine. Clothes I'd bought, a chipped mug from my first promotion, the journal no one knew I kept. I didn't take much, only what I needed. The rest I left behind: worn blankets, secondhand, guilt, the stories they told about who I should be. By midnight, the house was still. Rael's door was closed. Tomas had passed out on the couch, TV flickering blue across his face. I slid the keys off my ring and set them on the counter. No note, no goodbye. I was almost out the door when he stirred. His eyes opened, narrowed. Where the hell do you think you're going? I kept walking. He sat up. You're abandoning your family. That word again, family. Like it was supposed to chain me? I turned the knob, glanced back once. No, I'm letting go of the idea I ever had one. He stood there, unsteady but furious. He'll come crawling back. Don't think we'll be here waiting. I didn't respond. The night air was cool, not dramatic. No storm, no sirens, just the steady thud of my boots on the driveway. and the quiet rhythm of the dark around me. I drove to the little studio. I had already secured with first and last month's rent a corner unit above a shuttered bakery. The stairs groaned beneath my steps, the walls begged for paint, but the place was mine. I set down my suitcase, sat on the bare floor, and leaned back against the wall. No one shouting from another room. No one demanding where the money went. Only silence. Not the kind I used to fear, but the kind that finally gave me space to hear my own thoughts. The next morning, I bought a proper mattress, nothing fancy, just one without a dip in the middle. I brewed coffee in a cheap drip machine and drank it sitting on the floor. It tasted like something I hadn't realized I was missing. That night, for the first time in years, I slept without waking. 3 months later, when the phone rang close to midnight, I almost let it go. It was 11:04 p.m. I was brushing my teeth, half listening to an old playlist humming from the speaker, when the unknown number flashed. Something about the timing told me who it was. I ignored the first call. Then the second. On the third, I answered, "Is Ella." Rael's voice was taut, desperate. "Please don't hang up." I stayed silent. "We're getting evicted." He rushed out. "The notice is final. They're coming Monday." We thought we had more time, but his voice cracked. "We don't have anywhere to go." I sat on the edge of my bed, towels still around my neck. "Please," he begged again. "You have money. Just help us cover this month. After that, we'll figure it out." A pause, and then another voice grabbed the phone. "Tomas, you think you can just walk out and leave us to drown? We gave you a home, a roof, a family. You owe us." His tone was the same as when dinner was late or towels weren't folded. The way he wanted. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the lie had been worn so thin it couldn't hold its shape anymore. "I bought the food," I said. "I paid the bills. That roof stayed over your head because I handed you my paycheck and kept my mouth shut." He tried to cut in, but I pushed forward. "If you gave me silence, you gave me shame. If you gave me 100 reasons to leave and not want to come back." A stunned pause followed. Rael whispered from the background, "You're not like this. You've always been the one who held it together." "Exactly," I replied. "I held it. Now you'll see what happens when I let go." And I hung up. The quiet that followed didn't feel cruel. It felt earned. 2 weeks later, another call came. This time from Texas. I didn't recognize the number until I heard her voice. It was older than I remembered, slower, but still sharp. Around the edges softened by time, but not changed. "Is Ella?" she said. "It's your mother." I said nothing. She sighed. "I heard what happened. Tomas and Rael told me." "How could you leave them like that?" My jaw tightened. "Want to know how? Don't get defensive." She cut me off. "I'm just trying to understand. They're your family." "Kano," I said, "they were your family. I was the fill-in, the backup plan when you left and never came back." She went quiet, then answered with forced calm. "I had to leave. You know that? I did it for us. Did it for money," I said. "And maybe that was fair. You didn't call for birthdays. You didn't come back when Rael failed to grades or when I caught pneumonia. You didn't ask if I was okay. You only asked if the bills were paid." "That's not true." "It is." I cut her off. "I did everything you asked. I kept the house together. I stayed when I shouldn't have. I raised him while Dad drank. You sent checks with no return address. And now you want to ask why I left?" She inhaled sharply. "Still, you should have stayed." Those words hit harder than the silence before them, not because they surprised me, but because they didn't. I stared at the wall. Not angry, not sad, just finished. "I'm not your replacement," I said. "I was your daughter. And now I'm just done." "'Kay, Sela," she started, but I didn't wait for the rest. I ended the call. Then I blocked her number. There was no rush of power, no satisfaction, just the quiet relief of one less weight to carry. Later, I made tea, sat by the window with the curtain open, watching streetlights blink alive. When I went to bed, I slept with both arms above the blanket like I had nothing left to guard. The next morning, I checked my savings. I moved some into my travel fund. I'd been thinking about Oregon. Exactly 1 year from the night I walked out, I would finally face the question I had been too afraid to ask. What does life feel like when it actually belongs to you? A year has passed. Rael works at a tire shop by day and delivers groceries at night. Tomas drives for Uber in the mornings and sleeps through the afternoons. They've downsized to a small apartment near the bus depot backyard. No couch. No beer fridge. Just walls and rent due. I don't know this because I asked. I know it because silence doesn't stop people from posting. Updates arrive like postcards I never wanted. A tagged photo here, a rant thread there. They're surviving, but only because they had no choice. Me. I still live above the bakery. The paint still flakes, but the books are mine. The mornings are mine, twos low and soft, filled with lavender tea and sunlight spilling past the curtains. I've added more plants. They don't talk back. They don't demand. They simply grow when I water them. On Sundays, I walk to the farmer's market, pick vegetables I don't always know how to cook, and eat breakfast alone without explaining why. That's enough. I don't go home for holidays. I don't send updates. I don't call. Some people might call that cold. I call it honest. Sometimes I journal. Not daily, but when silence feels full instead of empty, I write truths I never said aloud. Like this one. People say peace is forgiveness. I think peace is not having to explain yourself anymore. I reread that line last night and realized they never truly loved me. They loved the version of me who gave until it hurt, who never said no, who filled every gap without complaint. But I'm not that girl anymore. Now I say no. Now I leave. Now I live without shrinking. And this version of me, she's not waiting to be understood. She's waiting for the next chapter.